First of all, I'd like to address it. I'd like to say good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. I sincerely appreciate your time and consideration for this opportunity to speak before you. My name is Marni Alward, and I'm here to speak in support of Senate Bill 1291 and Senate Bill 1347, the Workplace Psychological Safety Act. This bill isn't just a policy, it's protection, it's dignity, and it's survival. I want to begin by saying I never imagined I'd be here before you testifying how my life was shattered, not by accident, not by illness, but by the actions of my own employer. I work for a Fortune 100 company, a pharmacy benefit management company, CVS Specialty, a subsidiary of CVS Health, a company that promotes the core values of empathy, compassion, inspiring trust, and mental health awareness. They proudly ran a campaign called Stamp Out the Stigma. They encouraged us to speak openly about mental health as long as we didn't speak about how they were causing the damage. At the time, my husband was 26 years, was dying. He had just been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and I was already grieving the death of my son. We depended on the health insurance I received through my job, and so I even endured psychological abuse, gaslighting, and isolation, and I stayed. Even though I received the corporate recognition of the vice president personally exhibiting these core values, that personal acknowledgement only served to fuel the fire that in the already toxic work environment. I stayed through the whispers that I was the team member that everyone loved to hate. I stayed through being locked out of meetings, being denied training, denied promotions, and robbed of my paid time off. I stayed as my personal conversations were shared without my consent. I stayed as the HR launched and the Code of Ethics Department launched an investigation, and they told me to take FMLA so that things were sorted out. And nothing was ever sorted out. The abuse escalated and my suffering was ignored. When I returned from leave, I was denied access to my job. I was harassed off the clock. My wages were tampered with, and then I was fired. And I wasn't fired for poor performance, not for misconduct, but because I told the truth and I had proof. The company that preached empathy and mental health awareness canceled my husband's insurance, revoked my pay, stripped me of my livelihood, and discarded me. I lost my income. I lost my stability. I lost my ability to afford legal counsel. I was granted the right to sue by the EEOC, but what good is that when I was broke and broken? I was filed bankruptcy. I relied on food pantries to survive. I applied for utility assistance from the government, and I was trying to keep my head above water. This was just a toxic workplace. It was an institutional abuse. Not one single person was ever held accountable. That's why I'm standing here today, just not to share my story, but to demand change. Workplace abuse is not a personal failure, it's a structural injustice. It robs people of their health, their income, and their hope. Bill 1291 and 1347 would protect people like me and the countless others that are suffering in silence right now. Because we shouldn't have to choose between our dignity and our paycheck. Because corporate slogans are meaningless when accountability is absent. Because no one should be left behind just for speaking up. I support the Workplace Psychological Safety Act, and I ask you and urge you to do the same. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being part of the solution.